Hello everyone and welcome to our webcast today, Autodesk Revit for Landscape Architecture. We have our lead author for the book on the call today, Martha Hollowell. She will be presenting. So Martha, I will pass things over to you now.
Well, great. Thank you, Corrine, and thank you everyone for coming today. We are excited to kind of announce this new title, Autodesk Revit for Landscape Architecture. And today I'm not going to try and cover the whole class. As you imagine, it is a full amount of information, several days worth of material easily that you need to cover. So what I'm going to focus on today is three things: planting components, planting areas, and planting schedules. And as you'll see, that's a kind of a special thing that we needed to work with Revit that is different from what you might use otherwise. So that's what I'm going to focus on today, and as Corrine mentioned, everyone will be muted, and if you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A panel. And if we don't have time to cover all the questions on this call today, I usually do a follow-up blog that covers any questions that came up, and we try to get that information out. So with that, let's go ahead and look at what we're going to look at today. So in this webcast, we're going to investigate first how Revit for BIM, which is Building Information Management, or modeling, can become Revit for LIM, Landscape Information Modeling and Landscape Information Management. We're going to look at ways that Revit transitions easily into landscape architecture design, and then we're going to show you how we customized Revit to suit the needs of landscape projects, especially for planting components, planting areas, and planting schedules. Well, first of all, Revit for BIM is a big thing. So building information modeling, building information management, all those fun terms, is an approach to the entire building life cycle. It includes your design, construction, facilities management. So when we take the BIM process, which supports the ability to coordinate, update, share design data with team members across all disciplines, one of those disciplines is landscape design. And of course, the BIM project is broader, or process is broader than using any one software. But Revit is a true BIM product. It enables you to create let me try that again. It enables you to create complete 3D building models with considerable information reported through construction documents, and you can share those models with other programs for more extensive analysis. And so what we've got here is Revit being a parametric building, or in our case for landscape architecture's landscape modeler. The parametric, I'm going to have to start over again. Sorry, everybody. The parametric part is a relationship between the building elements and landscape elements, and when one element changes, the other elements change as well. Building, in this case, is the software is designed for working with buildings and, as you will see today, the surrounding landscape, as opposed to gears and highways, which you'll use other software for. And modeler, in this case, is a big one, especially for any of you transferring from plain old AutoCAD, which is more of a 2D, not always, but mainly a 2D product. The modeler that Revit is a project is built in a single file around the 3D building model. So all the views, such as this plan view that you can see over here, and let me see if I can get a little laser pointer here. Here you go. So here's our plan view. We didn't draw that plan view. We actually modeled the building and the topo surfaces and added in the trees and all of the different things. So all the views are done for, like, your elevations and sections and details, how you create your construction documents, all of that information, and even the information that's generated by that information is based on the model. So it's a very important part of using Revit. All right. So why do you need landscape information modeling? Well, I think that there's several main reasons. The first being that Revit is being required for more projects. So if you are working in a landscape firm now and all of a sudden they're saying, well, we need you to produce your a model in Revit, you're kind of going, well, what do I do with that? It also provides a smoother integration of the building and landscape design. So here, our building here is set up in a separate project by the architect. The architect can then send that project to the landscape designer that they can then put it into their landscape design like this. It also provides very robust 3D information. The information stored in these trees, for example, can be very robust, the information that you might need to have for those. And it incorporates that information into the schedules. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that this schedule and that building and landscape design do not go together, but I do want you to see this is a pretty robust schedule that we actually created in our class. Now, as we began developing Revit for landscape architecture, we first started working with some of the standard Revit elements. So, for example, you have stairs that, stairs are stairs. You might need to make sure that they're designed for exterior stairs and the size that they need to be for that, but they're stairs. Floors can be all sorts of things. We have here, like this is a wood plank patio here. We actually used floors, there it goes, for that water. This is a water feature. You can use floors for water. You can use floors for grass, all sorts of things that you can use floors for. Of course, walls are another big important thing. This is our, again, holding the water feature. They can be retaining walls, all the different kind of things like that. And then you have components. So these light fixtures here are components. This bench, these bollards, you can add in here. This is an example of selecting a few things that you can put in that are landscape components that are available. You even can add planting elements. So here's a tree. I don't know if you can see back in there, but there are a couple of little shrubs going on back in there. And we have our properties here for the trees. So some of these, even the standard elements, include some of our components as well. But the information that's stored in these elements is not exactly what landscape architects need. So we have customized the components used in our training guide to make them work the way they're needed, and that's part of what I'm going to be showing you today. Another thing that we did as we were developing Revit for landscape architecture is we looked at planting areas. Now, no one wants to put in individual components for large sweeps of, tulips or artificial turf or, mums or ground covers or whatever. You aren't going to add in every single little daisy garden mum there. So we actually had to figure out what in the world are we going to do for our planting areas. And we figure out the most so here's our but there, but we've got a problem. There are no elements for planting areas in Revit. So we had to figure out how are we going to do that. And the most useful way we found was customizing floors. And so we'll talk to you a little bit more about how we customized floors for planting areas. And of course, if you're working in a true BIM or LIM, landscape information environment, we need to have the information gathered into useful reports, such as planting schedules. But no useful schedules come with Revit. So we had to customize the elements themselves and then customize the schedules. And these can be used. I mean, when you see how they're actually done, when you get the course files, you can see how they're actually made. And I'll show you a little bit about what we did today of how we created those schedules. So, ta-da, I'm going to show you how we did the customization of some of the planting components, the planting areas, and planting schedules that make our Revit for Landscape Architecture training guide fulfill the needs of landscape information modeling. And this, by the way, is one of the last things that you will see in the project. So one of the project practices, you're going to come out with a full set of construction documents. You know, like I'm not going to cover all that today, but we've got everything from a key plan and notes, planting legend, our schedule, and then here's one of the examples of the 2D version showing a lot of the planting information. I did want to just let you know what one of the main things that we used in designing this is a project that we called Urban Garden Towers, and you can see just a little piece of it here. It's an actual project that was provided by SWA Ballsy, and it's a new housing tower, and it includes a motor court. You can see that here. There's a park-like area above the garage that's up in here, and then off this particular screen is a rooftop club with 2 pools. So it was kind of nice. It gave us a real sense of all the different things that you can do in mainly an urban environment. So the majority of the book is focused on the tools that are for building, you know, landscaping around buildings. We do, just so you'll know, because you're probably asking that question right now, we do cover how to use topography, excuse me, and we are also going to be offering soon, and I'm not sure how soon is soon, but a separate course on using an add-on to Revit called Site Designer, and that does a whole lot more with the softscape, the actual landscape. That Revit has some tools for it, and we do cover those, but the more useful tools are found in Site Designer, and we will be bringing out another book for that later on. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to spend the next little bit talking about how we customized, like I mentioned, the planting components. For example, our basic planting components over here. This is the one that's straight out of the box with Revit. We need some more information. So I'm going to talk about how we got some of these parameters in there. I'm also going to look at, like I mentioned, the floors that can be used for planting areas, and how we customized key schedules and separate schedules for planting areas. So those are the 3 things I'm going to look at now, and I'm going to spend most of the rest of this time in Revit itself. So I am going to check really quick. Are there any questions yet now, Corrine, that we need to answer?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we have any specific questions for you. We're good. Okay, Martha?
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So let's go ahead. I am now in Revit, working away in one of the projects that we had for this is one of the projects that we have in our book as the practice. You saw that a picture a few minutes ago. So here's some of our planting elements. We have some trees. We have, this is a specialty equipment, a freestanding trellis. We have some light fixtures. Yep, can I get it? Yeah, there we go. There's a lighting fixture. It's a flush in-ground lighting fixture. So we have a lot of this information that's available. And I want to start first with the planting component. So one of the nice things you have with the existing components that come with Revit is that they are 3D. They can cast the shadow. They are renderable. This is in a rendering mode right here. Not rendered, they're kind of ugly. Let's see, consistent colors. As you can see, you know, you're getting the feel that it's there. These are boxwoods back here, poor little things. They look so square. But with the rendering view that you have in this realistic one that I've got at this particular case, you can see you're showing up, okay, we know that they're trees. But the big thing is we need that information that's in these trees. So when I select one of the trees, you can see this one is a RPC tree, and that means it's that realistic, photorealistic content. It's a deciduous tree. It's an American hornbeam. So in this case, I just used the default information for a lot of that. But one of the biggest things that make Revit so useful is you can create these types, and you have instances. So that one example right now, we have one instance of that hornbeam, but I can come in here to edit type, and this is where I have information that covers all of the hornbeams in this particular case. Now, in this, I did use an American beech. There's a render appearance here, so if you're going, oh, that's not a hornbeam. It's pretty, you know, it's giving you the close enough for the preliminary design phase that's working here. These are the information that does come with the Revit files, and I'm not really going to go into that because, you know, creating render appearances and everything takes quite a bit of time, maybe another webcast at some point in time. But the important part here is specifically these three parameters. And once again, I'm not going to cover parameters because we actually just did that. I did a webcast in December, and it's on Revit Parameters Demystified. So we will put that in the show notes, and on the web, and some information will let you have a link to that one as well. So rather than me telling you how I actually created these parameters, I'm going to want to let you know that I did create them, and you can go back to the other webcast to see how parameters are made. And these, by the way, are shared parameters, so when you go and listen to that, they are shared, so just so you'll know how that information works. So the three things that we realized that we needed pretty importantly, one was the botanical name. So the default ones come with the type comments, and I actually have deleted it here because I didn't want them in there. The type comments used to say the common name. But really what you need is the botanical name and the common name, and you need that information to be able to grasp it in your schedules. So a lot of what we're doing here when we customize the actual individual types is we're preparing it to be put into the schedules. I also have added a parameter here called plant category, and these are trees. And the important thing here is that when we start looking at, you want to be able to filter, okay, I want trees here and shrubs here and annuals and perennials and things like that. You might want to be able to separate those out into separate schedules so that they are all together. So that was the reason why these plant categories here for trees, if you have trees and shrubs, are the options with this particular thing. Now, the beauty of setting this up is you can duplicate a type and name it something else. And say, for example, I'm not going to do this one specifically, but say that you needed to use a specific version of the American hornbeam. You could create one that's that, and you can then update the botanical name to match the very specific one that you need. Now, I do want to just mention a difference here of using plain old AutoCAD. Here I am saying plain old AutoCAD. It's probably customized amazingly. And so you have all of your trees and shrubs and everything that you use on a regular basis. You will need to be doing that for Revit. And I would say you would be building it up as you go along. The other big thing is you could just go, well, I'm just going to put all oaks, and they all are going to be the same thing, and I really don't care about the additional information. But you would be limiting yourself to more standard CAD uses as opposed to a true information modeling. And so I do recommend that you would create a new type as you go along for each of these. You probably don't need to update your render appearance. If you are rendering, you're probably going to bring in, an example of that exact tree a little bit better, but using another program. But it does really help to have this sort of information stored for each of your different trees that you're using and shrubs that you're using. Another important thing that I have here is, notice I have CC. That's my type mark, and that is the based off of the botanical name. And when we were looking around at various people, how they, various companies, how they actually labeled their planting, it was usually using the initials of the botanical name. So that's what we did here. It's stored in the type. That means you change one, they all change. So for example, if I come in here and I change this to a European hornbeam, right now it doesn't look different here because, like I said, we did not modify the rendering appearance. But if you come in here to edit type, whoops, I just hit the wrong button, wrong element. There we go. My European hornbeam. There you can see it's my different botanical name, different common name, and you scroll down here, and there's my type mark that matches the botanical name. So that's a lot of what we did for the planting components. We added the types, we added the, included the parameters in the planting area, so the planting category, anything that's in the planting category has that. So here's our little, this is a model group. I have to edit the model group. Let's see. Oh, it's not going to let me get down to the fact that it's a boxwood. Sorry about that. I wanted to see the boxwood, and it's not letting me. Modify, and it's not letting me. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. Not even letting me delete it. Oh, well. So anyway, I wanted to show so you can see that the boxwood has the same thing. So here's a shrub up here. There we go. Oh, that's our hornbeam. Anyway, each one has that information. I am going to go to a different view so you can see the same thing in a 2D view. So I have here the 01 Motor Court planting plan. And that is the exact same view you just were seeing, except for now that it's in the 2D view. And now I can do that. Let's just ungroup that for a minute. I wanted you to see my common boxwood. So here's a tree. It's a common boxwood. It's a shrub. It's got this information. And its type mark is down here. And it even knows it's a shrub by the assembly code up here. So that's just a little bit about the planting plans or planting elements. The next thing that I want to show you is the planting areas. And to see this, I'm going to change my graphic display option here so that we can see it with consistent colors. And what we did in this case, as I mentioned, we were trying to figure out what would be the best way to add in planting areas. And there is no planting area element yet in Revit. Now, who knows? They might be putting one in. That would be wonderful. I'd like to see that such an element come. But for right now, we needed to do just some kind of workaround. And the best one we found was to create actual floors. So here's a floor right now. But it's a planting, and it's an annual. It's a daisy garden mum. So just like we did with our planting elements, we created some additional things for our type properties in our floors. The list is different because floors have different parameters than planting elements do, the components do. But we have our plant category here. We can see, we've got annuals, ground covers, perennials, and shrubs. We don't need to have trees in this because for most cases you really will put in individual tree components. This is an annual. We have our botanical name and common name, so same information that we're gathering from our plant components. We actually have a couple extra things here. One is the season, and I'm going to talk to you more about why we incorporated season and when we'll look at the schedules. But I also have this little thing that's a checkbox, and it's to say this is a plant and not a floor. And once again, when you are putting information into Revit, one of the things you want to be able to do is gather the right information and filter it. And by creating this additional parameter, that we did for a plant, whether a floor is a plant, we can now say, I want to see all floors that are plants, and I don't want to see floors that are not plants. So if I cancel this for a second and select this floor here, this is a floor that's a cobblestone, you'll see I don't have any of that information filled out because it's not applicable, and I don't have that checked for plant. So that's an important thing that you need to do. Well, back to my plant here, I do want to show you one thing that as I was actually planning for this webcast, I realized, oh my gosh, we didn't fix one thing I meant to fix. And that is, if you keep scrolling down, there's tons and tons of information. And a lot of these things like the analytical properties, they aren't going to matter because that's really floor related. But I mentioned the type mark before. We want to have our type mark set up so that it is matching the botanical name. But in this case, I did not fix this assembly code. The assembly code you can see is still floor construction. Now, do you need to do this? This may be or maybe not. This is part of what you're working with when you're dealing with key schedules and keys. But I do want to show you how to fix this since I didn't fix it in our particular projects. I want you to see this here. So I'm going to go here beside assembly code. And you can see that right now we're looking at floors. So we're showing classifications for floors. But because I'm using this particular one as a plant, I'm going to change it now and go to planting. And then I'm going to scroll on down here and find all of my site improvement. Look, there's landscape. There it is. Planting. This is a planting one. So now I'm going to click OK. Notice that the assembly code updates to the one that I selected, and it's now considered an assembly description of planting. So do you need that? We'll talk about that more. I mean, you can discuss that in your office because that's not necessarily something that everyone needs to use. But I'm going to click OK, and that updated that. So like I said, the planting areas, there's not something there that's for the planting area yet, but floors work pretty well. And just so you can see how this does even in a sloped area, I'm going to come over here to my 3D view down here. I'm going to Roof Garden Hill. So this is a plant, it's not, I didn't have it out in planting areas, but it is in an artificial turf. So here you can see here's my floor that's in artificial turf. This is kind of a hard shape right now, but there you can see a little bit more. It's just a floor that's been sloped, and so you can actually have slopes, and your planting areas can follow that floor. So that's just an example of what's going on there. Well, once you have gotten your trees in, your shrubs in, your planting areas in, all of these different things, you need to make sure that the things are going right in your schedules. So let me show you our schedules. And once again, what I'm working in right now is one of the practices that we actually have in the training guide. You know what, let me do this. I'm going to open up my motor court planting plan so you can see a little bit of what's going on here as I also show you some of the schedules. So I'm scrolling down here. I have lots of schedules. And one of them that's most important here is this one that's all in caps and it has an underline in front of it. And this is just a standard, again, depends on how you choose to use this. This one is not used on a sheet. It's not used in construction documents. It is a schedule that's used to schedule other schedules in a sense. What we've got here is probably something you already have in your office, either on a sheet of paper or maybe even in an Excel spreadsheet. It's the typical plant material spacing. Now, we've got one for floor because, remember, we're using our floors for planting materials, so we had to create this so that the floors would talk with this particular key schedule. So, and again, I'm not going to tell you how to create a key schedule, but we do have that covered in our BIM management book. And I can't remember now, we've done a schedule webcast, but I don't think we've done one recently. So maybe I'll do a key schedule webcast coming up at some point in time. So, but this one is a key schedule, and basically what you've got is that ID, where it says spacing ID, or that could also be the key. And that key can then be used in other schedules, and it will know all the information that is assigned to that key. So if we have a spacing ID named 6, the spacing is 6 inches, and then there's our square feet, and we also have square feet, and we also have it in metric because that's a pretty standard thing to need as well. So you can set this up as you need it. We did have when I was doing bulbs, you had so many bulbs per square feet, that was slightly different. So we had to create a slightly different information for that one. Now I'm going to come down here to another schedule. This is our planting schedule. This is a generic planting schedule. It's covering everything in the entire project. You can see also that I've got planting schedules that are designed for each of the different areas, and I'll show you how those are set up in just a second. But let me just first of all look at my planting schedule. Now, in this case, this information is all coming from my type properties. So we've got the various hornbeams that are there. We've got the little leaf linden that's available. We have our common boxwood. So all of those were put in as individual components. We also have something that's here. It's like, oops, what's that? So something's not quite right. So I want to see, what are these 151 somethings? I'm not really sure what they are. And to do that, all I have to do is pick in one of the columns, rows right here, and click Highlight and Model. And I'm going to show it there. You can see there's some little things right there, but let me just show you another view. There they are. This is a better view. So this is right here. We have a whole series of model elements. These are 2D elements as opposed to 3D elements. They're also in a group. So I'm going to edit the group here. We saw groups a minute ago. And I'm going to select both of these things. Just want to show you something kind of cool. They're bamboo 2D. So, okay, so they're just 2D. If I edit the type, there it is, no information in here. Let's say I wanted to keep it just 2D. I could fill that information in, and it would automatically update okay. So, there is that option. The other option I can do is actually change it to a 3D element. So I have this yellow grove bamboo, which is right now too big. So I'm going to edit this type. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm not going to try to spell all those things. So I'm going to go bamboo 3D. Sorry, that's just me being lazy. And these are, I'm going to just leave these right now, but you can go ahead and have whatever name they are. And just so you can see how this would look, I am changing the height to 3D. To 3 feet. So see, they're a little bit too big, this particular design layout. They came actually from something called Buddha belly bamboo. So you're seeing just bits and pieces of how you would fix this, but at least it's giving you some ideas. So I'm clicking it to 3. That fits that space a little bit better. And of course, if I was really doing this, I'd be a lot more active in what I'm doing. But I do want you just to see this. This is so cool. I'm going to finish. Because it was in a group, it automatically updated all the rest of the groups. And now when I come back to my schedule, there they are. They've added it up in here, our yellow grove bamboo. So 24 of them. There's still 127. They're on the roof somewhere else. But you can see the power that's behind these. And also here, this doesn't have a key. So what I need to do is add one. If I do it here, PA-A, this is going to change all of these that I just put in. And now there are some duplicate type values. I'm not going to worry about that. But anyway, that gives us the information that we need for that as well. So that's just a little power of the BIM, the whole BIM or landscape information modeling as well. When you are dealing with your schedule, you can make sure the right information is up there and going. The next schedule I want to show you is, first before I go here, I wanted to show you this how I separated them out. So we had three different areas. We had the club roof, which you can see has no plants on it at the moment. We had the motor court, and we had the roof garden. And actually, I don't have my motor court schedule set up right. So that's why it wasn't showing anything. But you can see how our roof garden, actually is limited to those particular planting that are on the roof garden right there. So that, by the way, is done with your fields and filter. So over here in this other section, if you have dealt with scheduled properties, you have the different fields that go in a property, and then you can filter them. And so what we did was we filtered them by floor level equals roof garden, or floor level equals motor court, whatever the name of that level is. So in this case, that's just how we did that particular one. And we must not have had it quite right because my motor court's not showing anything, and there should be information in there. So that is what I want you to see with those three things. Now, if you're having one big schedule and you're not needing to separate it by levels, you don't need to do that. In this case, because we had three separate levels, and you needed to know the separate ones, and typically you're also putting those on the sheets with the actual landscape planting plan. So let's take a look at the next one, planting area schedule. Now this one is going and getting information from the floors and not from the other elements. And we have these as perennials and shrubs, and we don't have any annuals because you can see I have an annual rotation table separate. And once again, this was how did we go about fixing all of this stuff? How did we choose the different things? Part of it was trial and error. Now, here's another really cool thing that came out of this, and I want to go back to my floor plan. Oops, just hit the wrong button. Let's go back to there, this. This green right here is a boxwood, dwarf boxwood planting shrubs, and we saw earlier that for the floors we had set up, with our text, the category information right there. But in each of the instances, so if you haven't used Revit much, you have types which impact every item that you put in there. You have instances, which are the ones that are selected at that point. So I now have this instance, and these are the parameters that belong to that instance. I have, so if I scroll down here, I have a couple of extra parameters that I created. Let me move this so you can see it all. And the important one here is the spacing OC. So this is one that we added into our floors, and we wanted to have the spacing, and then we have the analysis results. So remember that key schedule you saw a minute ago. This is the key, and I'm going to say, for example, pick 6. That's going to be 6 inches on center. So here it is. All that information is filled in. If I put in, no, that's really a pretty big thing. I want to put them 12 inches on center. There's the information you can see there. And here, once I scroll back through, have too many things open. Sorry about that. There we go. My planting schedule? No, not the right planting schedule. Planting area schedule. Get it that way. Now we have this. We now know how many of our little dwarf boxwoods we need for that area. And that quantity there is done magically, I love it, through that key schedule that we had, as well as the information that's stored in the planting area floor, and it automatically gives us that information as well. So you can still go ahead and add in, and I am having a little bit of problem here. It should have also filled in the spacing right here, and it didn't. So that's one of the things you have to play around and find out why that's not working. I'm not positive what's happening there. But here, these are things that are not necessarily filled in automatically, and you would add in, the size as if this is, whatever it's going to be, and your root, like, so this is going to be a container, whatever you need to add in there, and any kind of remarks that might need to be made. And I do want to just notice here on the end, there's my level, so it's listed right now. In the long run, once I would set this thing up, I probably then would go ahead and modify this, turn this off, but then make one for each level. This particular practice is kind of in the middle of the process of doing the work. But that's really the cool thing. So it's like, what are these quantities are? It's where you schedule them through your each of the planting plans. So let's see what we got here. There's our dwarf boxwood, so there's some more dwarf boxwood. I'm pressing tab to get the inside thing. This is a knockout rows. So once again, now I come over here, go down to where's my spacing, what's my spacing on center, maybe 9 inches. It probably needs more than that, but just an example of what that might be. Come back here, add a spacing. This is a hydrangea. I'm going to get that to be like 18 inches apart, 24, 18, 24. So I've now added the things that are on that first floor, and I can come back to my planting area schedule, and you're starting to see that information is starting to be filled in. How many of these are actually going to need to be bought for each of those areas? The last little bit that I want to show you in the schedules, and like I said, we did a lot of modification, as you can see here, but once this is done, it's not like you have to do it again and again and again. You'd save these things in a template file and just bring them in as you need it. But the last thing I did was an annual rotation table. So in this case, we wanted to have more than one annual in one place. So we've got them right now. We've got these little lavender chrysanthemums set up. But I'm going to go to a different file. Let's see. Here we go. Sheets. This one, planting plan. Nope, that's not the one. I want details. We'll go to details. So here's my urban garden details. This one's a little bit further done, and you can see, by the way, here's our schedules actually placed onto the construction documents sheet. So there's our planting schedule, motor court, planting area schedule, motor court. There's some of our spacing starting to show up here. So some things that you add in, like the size and the root ball and the remarks, those you add in yourself. But then we wanted to do an annual rotation table, and that was so we could have the same things all adding up on top of each other. And the way we did that, again, this is our workaround. You might find some other better ones, but what we did was we actually just put in a whole bunch of floors on top of each other because it really didn't matter how thick these floors were because what we wanted was this information. And along with that, we added in an additional option of what season was it, because again, you needed to have the seasons that are there. So I'm just going to come down here and click on my schedule. This is where we had annuals right here. There's our daisy mom. I'm going to double click on the view defined by that section and zoom in, and you'll see I have a bunch of different floors So if you see, I'm picking this one here. So there's some magenta impatiens. There's May sage. Here's salmon pink geranium. If I'm coming over here to edit the type, this is our, remember, our type information. We've got a nice color for it. We've added in the season. So we had a list of seasons that would be available, and then that way that information, again, is coming back into our schedule as we selected which ones they are. So basically, just a whole bunch of plants on top of each other, or floors that are planting areas on top of each other. You'll notice I do have one that's thicker, and that's actually one that we needed to get information from the Riverstone, and we needed the thickness for that because that's the kind of information you need with Riverstone. And so when you come in here to our Riverstone, we actually set up the structure to be 3 inches, and that was an important part of doing that. But you can see here's our winter. We are considering this a plant because we need it in our schedule, but we have it in winter. So that's a little bit of the thoughts of where we came from to put all of this together. Go back to my planting plan here. And by the way, you can see there's our, I didn't even talk about tags, but the tags are finding what they are for the various items that you have there. Each one is set. You can, just so you can know about the tags thing, you can't automatically get that number. Let me just, there we go. So here's my tag. We actually add text here. There are ways you can probably do that using Dynamo, so that's an additional thing that might be a useful thing to look into for any of you who are BIM managers or who are going to be managing people who are working with that. Right now, that's not just something you can do quickly in Revit architecture, but it'll probably get there. They do a lot of good stuff. So anyway, I hope that this has helped. There's, like I said, a completed construction document. We've done all the work in the model, and basically we didn't even come into the 2D view until we were ready to, add the tags. You do work in 2D views some because it's easier to create floors in 2D, for example. But you are actually thinking 3D. You're working in 3D as you're doing it, and it gives you all the information that you need. So with that, I'm going to switch back over to my PowerPoint. Let's see, here we go. And just to mention what we have out here, these are all of our Revit tools, but are all the Revit books, and they're all out. And I do want to just say also, now available is our Autodesk Revit for Landscape Architecture training guide, and it is a 3-day class if you're doing it in full class period times. And so that's kind of the general thought about how much that is, and what is that? I can't even think of how many hours that is. It's between 16 and 32. What is that, 24?
24, Martha.
Yeah, thank you. It's like, hello. What is my hours for that class? So about 24 hours worth of material, really a whole lot more than that because you can keep building on what you're doing. And I'm going to now turn it back to Corrine, and she's going to remind you of all the options and give you a neat little opportunity on the next slide.
Yes, yeah, I'm going to skip. I will do this one really quickly because you do have quite a few questions that have come in.
Oh, okay.
Of course, as soon as you mentioned questions earlier in the webcast, then they started to come in.
Right.
So I just wanted to let everyone know that the books that we do have are available in different learning formats for you, depending on how you prefer to learn. So we have a printed book, which we call our student guide. There's kind of a picture of it there. We also have digital ebooks, so exact same content, but available in an ebook format. For many of our books, we have video-enhanced ebooks as well. We don't have one yet for the landscape architecture book, but for many of our other Revit books, we have that available. We have e-learning bundles, and we also have instructor tools. And I do believe you have instructor tools for this title.
Yes,
right?
So yeah. there are that, and it includes some PowerPoint slides.
Yeah, so great if you are teaching the class. That's a handy thing to have as an instructor. So if we want to go to the next slide, I do want to share with everyone a promo code that we are offering for this book. So if you haven't purchased the book yet, now here's a great opportunity for you to do so. We've set up a promo code. It's there in green. Maybe you just want to highlight it there, Martha. The promo code is RLA-15. It will give you 15% off the title of this book. So it's valid just for the Landscape for Revit Architecture book. It is available for the printed book, the e-book, and the instructor tools. You can save 15%. Just keep in mind that if you order quantities between like 1 and 9, this is good. If you order more than 10 copies of the book, or you're ordering lots of them for your school or something like that, then you're going to get a better discount anyway. So this is really just for the 1 or 2 books that people are interested in purchasing. The offer is valid until April 1st. You can use it more than once, but you may not combine it with any other offers. If you happen to have a promo code or something, you can only use one promo code at a time. And you would need to use this on our Ascent e-store. So if you look at their Contact Ascent at the top, yep. So it's set up through the AscentEstore.com. That's where you can use the promo code. However, this book is also available for purchase on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and look for us there or type in the title of the book, you will see it there. And if you're an Amazon Prime member, usually they offer free shipping. So it's really just up to you how you would like your book. Amazon prints the book slightly differently than the way we print ours. So if you come to the Ascent e-store, you'll get the spiral bound book. If you go on Amazon, it's called like the perfect binding, where it's all kind of glued together there, and it's a slightly smaller size. So a little, different formats. You can certainly reach out to sales if you're not sure, which one would be better for you, or just have questions about the book styles. Please give them a call. They'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.